In this module, we're going to cover relational trust. This is the foundation of any great teaching and learning. And any leader, if we understand this, we can get amazing results in our team, our students, and our personal lives. So, what are we going to focus on? Module is really going to discuss the fundamental principles of communication and relational trust. The following topics are covered within the module. So, firstly, we're going to look at what is relational trust and its importance to enhancing strong collaborative communities. We're going to look at the behaviors that build that trust and your personal circle of influence. How do we engage in this to actually make it tangible? By the end of this module, you should be really having a look at three understandings. Understand the key attributes of what relational trust is and how to build credibility. Identify your key communication skills needed to establish and enhance your relational trust with others, and develop a clear understanding what's in your control and what is not. So let's just jump straight into it. So there's three leadership mindsets that we want to take into this module. Now, being teachers, being leaders, it doesn't matter if you're in a physical hierarchy. As a teacher, you are a leader of learning. So we need to understand what are the three mindsets that we're really going into. Now, this is an adaptation from the School Leadership Institute, and there's three core pillars we're looking at here. Student-centered. I have the relentless focus on progressing the learning of our students. Collaborative, I regard collaborative cultures derived from genuine trusting interactions with learning community as key successful teaching and learning. And a curious mindset. I'm deeply committed to ongoing inquiry, improvement, and innovation in teaching and learning. With those three mindsets in mind, we will be going forward into the relational trust module. So first, what is it? What is relational trust? Let's get a clear definition. So relational trust involves respecting, caring for, and believing in the honesty and competence of our colleagues and leaders. Essentially, having a positive intent in mind. People are out to do the right thing, and if they're not doing the right thing, they don't know a better way. It's complex, very complex, because it is situated between people, relationships, interactions, and the actions that we take over time. To build it, but it can so quickly be broken. We're going to be developing trust. Developing trust needs to be deliberate and planned. If we don't do this deliberately in our processes, then we actually don't ingrain a foundational skill in ourselves. So relational trust can't be built before the work is done. It's actually built as we go through. So by working together, we're better together, working alongside. And that's why there's strategies such as walk and talk. When you've got a really pointy end conversation that you need to have, let's just walk shoulder to shoulder and we'll deal with this thing together. That's a simple way of building relational trust, but more of the strategies coming up. I love this quote by Susan Lovett. So teacher leaders are characterized by the enduring commitment to improving students' learning. Their strong sense of moral purpose is what determines their leadership activities. They develop close collaborative working partnerships with their colleagues through their mutual interest in solving issues of practice that revolve around helping students to learn. That's such a powerful quote for me, and that is really the fundamental underpinning and foundation of what relational trust is for. To have that common purpose, we're here for a reason, it's for our students to help them learn. So there's a couple of key attributes to relational trust. Now we're going to break that down into four things. So they facilitate a stronger sense of professional community, where teachers are more willing to innovate and take risks and be part of that creative culture that shapes highly respectful relationships. So what are they? The first one is respect. Genuinely listening and valuing the opinions of others across the school community. Like Stephen Covey would say, seek first to understand before being understood. I found that this is probably one of the most fundamental principles applying to building relationships with others. Don't assume you have all the answers. Seek to understand what is their perspective first before being understood. Next, we're looking at personal regard for others, that willingness of members of the school community to extend themselves beyond their formal role. You see it all the time. Those amazing leaders, those amazing sort of high achieving teachers will go above and beyond what their regular course or normal day would be just to help out their colleagues, their students, or their families. Competence, that effectiveness when When negligence or incompetence persists in any role in the school, it undermines trust. Essentially, competence is built by confidence, and confidence is built by competence. If we are competent in the role, essentially, trust that we can do the job is there. And we do that by doing the job. Personal integrity. Now, that consistency between what a person says and does and the uh, enactment of their moral purpose. If I say I'm going to do this thing, I do this thing. It's very key. A student will call you out so quickly if you don't follow through with what you've actually said you're going to do. So why is this important? We're going to have a quick little look. Now, this is a task. You're going to pause the video in a minute, but teachers are more likely to commit to innovation and change when high relational trust in schools are coupled with strong moral imperative to improve student learning. So studies are really highlighting three important benefits of having strong relational trust: improve student learning outcomes, improve cultures of care and collaboration, and increased teacher commitment and motivation for change. So I just want you to get a little bit of paper, draw a Y on your page, looks like, sounds like, feels like, and take 3 minutes. Pause the video here, take 3 minutes and identify what does relational trust look like, sound like, and feel like within your classroom, your online course, or your team. Just that quick identification of what does it look like when we actually have strong trust. What does it sound like? Are people having positive conversations, or is there this niggling of this is too hard, I can't do this? And what does it feel like? Do you feel energized? Do you feel confident? Do you feel excited to go to work or excited to engage? Or are you feeling like this is burning me out? I'm tired. I'm not. What is it for you? So just pause the video real quick, jump in, quickly reflect. What does it sound like, look like, or feel like? All right, let's continue on. So let's get to the tactical strategies. Yeah. The magic of rapport. We all hear this buzzword: rapport, 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 relationships, relationships, relationships. Essentially, what is rapport? Rapport is the relationship of responsiveness between people. So if they are working well, they've got a good rapport, good relationship. But if there is no responsiveness in a positive manner, then we don't have good rapport. Let's go through how do we actually build it. So there's three forms of communication: the words we use, the voice, we have our tonality and tempo and all those kind of things, and then our physiology, the way we use our body. So let's quickly have a look at what percentage of these actually has impact on building that rapport. We want tangible actions that we can take away from today. So words, you wouldn't believe it, but only 7% of actually what we are saying is building rapport. And there's simple strategies we can do to help enhance that. And we'll go through them in a minute. Voice, your tonality, your speed, your tempo, your volume, all these can convey a sense of rapport. So having that tone when someone is speaking to you a million miles an hour and the other person, or you are just like cruisy as, yeah, I'll take one step at a time. You got different sort of tonalities and different speeds, meaning you got not responsive to the other person. And that accounts for 38% of our communication. So having that ability to shift our voice, our tone, our tempo, our volume can actually make or break communication or good communication between people. The crazy thing is here is 55% of communication is through physiology. Now, what is physiology? It's just how we use our body. We are so in tune to facial cues, how we move our body, our hands, gestures, and that direct relationship to communication and trust is through the body. So we trust people through their actions, and their actions can speak a million words by just the expression on your face, for example. If you are having a bad day and you're just walking around, you're all grumpy, people can understand that real quick. They don't have to ask you, and they don't have to verbally say, are you upset? They can see you're upset because we communicate 55% more of our emotions through our body language. So, practical strategy, how do we build rapport? Through any interaction. It could be with our students, parents, staff, our team, it does not matter. This is literally applicable to anything. Now, this is a simple technique matching and mirroring. So people like people that are like themselves, or I like how they would like to be. I know that's a really confusing sentence, but I like people who like my same kind of interest, or I like people who I'm inspiring to be. Style, essentially, is more important than substance initially. So when we're looking at matching and mirroring, that's through body language. Our style, our way we do it is better than the substance, meaning the way we talk and the way we communicate that way. So, elements of the mirror. So you got, remember those three core places: words, voice, and physiology. Let's start with the words. Words or key phrases. So sentence structure. Now let's break this down really quickly. One of the key strategies I use when I'm dealing with really challenging conversations. Now, whether this is during suspensions or conflictual meetings or personal development or performance meetings, whatever it may be, the role in the voice can be really clear here. And when we say mirror, it's mirroring the last thing that they say or the last few words that they say. So just say, if someone says, "Hey, I'm stressed out today," you could just mirror, "Sounds like you're stressed out today." And then it might seem like not much interaction, what you're actually having. What that person is getting signaled is you're listening exactly how I'm feeling. You're not assuming I'm feeling stressed. You're actually hearing what I just told you. And that's a real key thing that people overlook. Someone's upset, someone's having a great time, just mirroring the last few words that they're saying can invoke this curious mindset where people can actually open up a little bit more. They're not feeling as guarded. They can actually communicate what are they going through. And that's that sentence structures and key words or phrases. So one of the structures I like to use in this words, it sounds like, it seems like, it feels like. It feels like you're upset with me. It sounds like you're having a really hard time understanding what my expectations are for you in this job. And it seems like we could improve here, here, and here. Sounds like, seems like, feels like. Remember, in that framework, using those kind of frameworks, we don't want to get bogged down onto the I statements. Feels like I have upset you. It's all about just that relationship between what are they saying, mirroring what the last few words. It seems like the last few words they said. And it's just to get a bit more clarity of what they're actually expecting. Now, the voice quality. This is subtle. This is one of the subtle ones, but it really does impact on how we can mirror. So if someone's tone of voice is really sort of empathetic and tonality is how passionate we are behind things. If you mirror that passion, then people like themselves. Tempo and the speed. If someone's talking extremely slow, you can match that speed and start talking a little bit slower. We do these inflections of voice and tonality to really connect with our people, really understand we are the same, we are in this together, and we can get through whatever's going on. Someone speaking really, really noisy, match that, then we're on the same path. But on the other side of that, you can actually mirror, but do the inverse of the volume. Now, this is a bit more complex. If everyone's really noisy, super quiet. And that will just draw attention in. That's how we command a big room full of people. We already talked about the inflection, ups and downs of how we use our vocal cords. Last bit, the most important in building rapport quickly is physiology. So our posture, our gestures, our eye contact, all these things, our facial expressions. So a little story, if you're walking down the street and see a lady pushing a pram and there's a little baby in the pram and that baby looks up at you and then gives you a smile, do you naturally just smile back? More than likely, unless you're a little bit upset at that time, you more than likely will just unintentionally smile back. And that is because that connection between facial expressions That's happy. I'm happy. We're going to build rapport through this. It's all unintentional, but it has big impact. If you smile first, other people will smile. Now, more sort of subtle ones are breathing. The pace, the speed. When we are breathing in sync, this can help sort of match up our sort of wavelength, I guess. And then that proximity. This is a big one for non-verbal cues. Being close to someone uh, can have a proximity effect on how confident or how connected we are at that time. If you're shoulder to shoulder, you're very connected. If you're sitting at the other opposite sides of a room, you're not connected much at all by proximity. But touch as well, but we obviously do not do that in education. Just don't touch people, period. Yeah, it's easier to do all the rest of it. So there's a small little task I want you to do. Next time you're sitting next to someone, whether it's in the staff room, it's at a cafe, do something subtly. Watch how they sit. Watch how they sit. If they're sitting there like this and they've got their hand on their chin, just subtly do the same thing. You don't have to look at them or anything like that. Just at the corner of your eye, observe what they do, and then you do it eventually. If they cross their arms, eventually you just cross your arms and have a conversation, whoever you're talking to. After a while, you will start getting in sync. And I want you to notice what happens when you then move first. Maybe you just stretch up, lean back. Maybe you do something, you just cross your arms or you move your feet or you do something just after a while. See what happens. You'll be staggered with how much sort of in sync we become with people through physiology and just building that connection. So let's get into the next bit. Enhancing our credibility and to build that trust. So it's really important. We can actually see it so much with role models, insightful thought leaders, and practitioners. They serve as a really powerful reminder that we can do something about even our very deep personal character-based issues that impact our credibility, which is the prerequisite of trust. So let's jump into them. So personal integrity. How do we go about increasing our integrity? Well, there's 4 key steps, and this is pretty straightforward. Make and keep commitments to yourself. How many times have you said, I'm going to go for a run tomorrow? Oh, I'll go to the gym tomorrow. And then tomorrow never comes. You've either got the phrase day one. So one day I will go to the gym. One day I will make that content. One day I'll go and talk to that parent. We flip that to make the commitment to ourselves. Instead of saying one day, we switch it and we go day one. Day is the day I'm taking some action. Showing up for yourself and holding yourself accountable can actually build your confidence. Now, having something to stand for. When we're passionate behind things, we actually have more credibility between what we're saying and what we do because we believe what we say. Now, that doesn't mean we are ingenuine. We're being open, in other words, authentic. When we are open and we say what we mean and we mean what we say, then we can create personal integrity. Having that self-belief, I can do this, I have that confidence. We go into the intent. Now, this is a big one and can be construed in all sorts of ways depending on how we perceive other people's intentions or our intentions ourselves. So first, we need to examine and refine our motives. It's human tendency to assume we have good or at least justifiable intent. But just consider, is that the case? All you need to do is what I'm doing now for a good reason, not maybe time to shift. The second part of that would be to declare your intent. It signals your behavior and lets people know what to look for so they can acknowledge it when they see it. If you say, hey, look, I'm intending to run this program tomorrow, and then you never show up, well, you're not going to have much personal integrity because one, you didn't show up for yourself, and one, you didn't show up for two, you didn't show up for others. Now we choose that last bit, which is abundance. Abundance means there is enough for everybody. Opposite is scarcity. Scarcity says that there is only so much to go around, and if you get it, I won't. So it's that idea of there's heaps for us to share rather than being selfish. Our intent matters. Showing up and, like we say, better together. When we give and share freely, then we are better together. Now, our capabilities enhance credibility by increasing them. So, run with your strengths, keep yourself relevant, and know where you're going. Remember, our confidence is built by competence. So, when we are got a skill that we are developing, such as teaching, expert teaching, or leading, we can build that skill by running with our strengths in certain areas, keeping ourselves accountable and relevant, and then know exactly the purpose of why we're doing this. And that leads us to the last point of enhancing credibility to build trust, and that is through the results. Given the importance of results in establishing credibility and trust, both with ourselves and with others, the question here is, how can we improve our results? Well, there's four little spots to that. Take responsibility for them, even if they're poor. Yes, I didn't do X, Y, Z. However, I'm going to apply that next time. We need to expect to win. If we go in with that scarcity mindset of I can't do this, I can't achieve this, well, we're not going to get the result we want. The bigger the goal, the bigger the tree. Now, there's this analogy that when we are met with resistance, resistance comes from having a big goal. So let's just go break that down a little bit. Our results. Say you've got this goal to run this course and get some amazing results, or you've got this goal to unify a faculty and team so that we're all consistent in a certain practice. That's a big goal. Consider that like a giant tree in the middle of the forest. The bigger the tree, the bigger the goal. Okay. So the tree is going to cast a shadow. And what the shadow is the resistance to the calling. We want to try to climb to the top of that tree. But that shadow is the thing that stops us. So when we're looking at our big goals, we've got to expect to win. We've got to expect to climb to that top of that tree, regardless of the shadow that's cast around us. When we finish strong, meaning we have achieved a result, we celebrate a result. And then you make sure you put the effort in. There's no point in having a big goal and to build the trust with people not put any effort in. If you don't say hello, you don't smile, you don't connect with others, people don't care. So put the results in by putting the effort in. Get the results by putting the effort in. Remember my phrase, effort equals results. So that leads us to the second last part of this. If we are building trust within a team. Now we're all team players because we are all in this program and community together. So let's just get some fundamental frameworks down packed. So we're going to have a look at the 5 dysfunctions of a team. We've got our results, accountability, commitment, conflict, and trust. Let's break them down a little bit. So dysfunction number 1, absence of trust. Fear of being vulnerable prevents teams from building trust with each other. This is a really important one. If we are fearful that we can't admit that we made a mistake, that we are going to get yelled at or harassed for not doing something or making a mistake, whether it's practical or we just didn't meet a deadline, well, that absence of trust is going to be created. And remember, we're looking at that triangle, that pyramid. This is where it starts. So the inverse of absence of trust is to build it. Courage to risk. Having that courage to risk, building trust requires vulnerability. We need to be open, we need to be honest, and we need to be intentionally positive with our words. Dysfunction number 2, that's that fear of conflict. So the desire to preserve artificial harmony stifles productive ideological conflict with the team. So meaning, if we are just saying, hey, we're going to get along, but I've really got an issue with John over here, and John's not talking to Tracy over here, well, that artificial harmony, if we're all here together, we're all having a good time, is going to just erode all forms of trust within our team. So one key principle and strategy I learned from an Arctic explorer who basically went into an Arctic expedition for 9 months, was trapped on Antarctica because you can't fly in or out, and her whole job was to preserve the sort of uh, trust within that team. How did she do it? She said, "We're not going to talk in triangles." What does it mean? You don't come to me with your problem about that person. You have the ability to sort out your differences together. Go and talk to that person directly. Use the framework. It seems like you're having a rough time. It feels like this was directed at me. Sounds like we need to sort of move on or work together. Healthy conflict implies candid debate. Yeah. We can have differing opinions, but we need to have that trust to speak out about those opinions without fear of retribution. That is probably the key here. If you've got a team and you're working in a team, you could be the teacher, early career, you could be the head teacher. If you have that fear that you're going to be dismissed for having an opinion, then that's an issue. You need to sort that out because that means people can't be vulnerable. And that's the foundational step of building trust within a team. Now, dysfunction number 5 is that lack of commitment. Now, we've all seen it before. People just rock in, rock up, and just clock in, clock out. They're in and out. There's no commitment to their work. They don't show up for anything. They don't really buy into the common vision of what we're trying to achieve. And that's usually because of a few things. We've got a lack of clarity. Why am I doing this thing? Or they've just got a lack of buy-in, which prevents team members from making decisions they stick to. There's no leverage. They don't have any sort of skin in the game. A decision was made from the top and they've been told to do it. Probably the worst kind of way we can lead because people will start to resent those decisions. So how do we do it? We hear all. We disagree with some things. We make a decision through common buy-in, and then we create one voice. Having that healthy consultation and collaboration can get people to buy into a vision and a collective goal. If we don't have that, our third foundation of building trust is not going to happen. That would lead into that fourth point, avoidance of accountability. The need to avoid interpersonal discomfort prevents team members from holding each other accountable for their behaviors and performance. So these are all sequential. It goes from bottom up. If we don't have a commitment, then we're not going to be held accountable. So people are going to avoid that conflict, and which is a necessary and desired action, because external accountability means we can actually move forward. So how do we resolve that? We need to take 100% accountability requires prior commitment. So 100% buy-in. Yes, we're all doing this one thing. Yes, we're going to spend our focus here. We don't have that. And the job of a leader is to clear the path to make sure the priority number 1 is number 1 for everyone. So if we don't have that, then it creates really quite a challenge. A colleague once said to me, whenever you create a system, you got to consider that system to be like letting a tiger out of a cage. You don't hang on to that tiger, it's going to go and maul everyone. So that is what accountability is. If we're not holding on to the reins of the thing that we've told everyone we need to do, or we've collectively come and said, hey, we need to do this thing, it's going to maul everyone and erode trust. And then the last one is that inattention to results. That ability to look forward and go, okay, we've achieved this thing or we didn't achieve this thing. But if we don't actually analyze it, then what's the point? So the pursuit of individual goals and personal status erodes teams' focus of collective success. Everyone can have internal personal goals or personal goals in general, professional personal goals. However, the common goal of the team should be to move forward together. How do we create that? Well, it's through those other foundational pillars of relational trust within that team. So collective and individual accountability and feedback is how we actually do that. Are you progressing in your personal journey? Fantastic. I'm going to support you to get to the next step. And as the leader, and that could be whether you're in the classroom and you're leading all these students or you're leading a team, that results or that focus on results is how we actually point people into the right direction. So here's a couple of questions to challenge and cherish any teacher's heart and invite deep inquiry. So the question we most commonly ask is, what what problems shall we create, or what programs shall we create? The what. We always are starting with a what. What should we do next? What should we do? Then the next, to go a little bit deeper, is when the conversation goes a bit deeper, we need to ask how. What methods and techniques are required to create well? Or how are we going to use them? Then the next bit would be, occasionally, when we go deeper still, is ask why. For what purposes and for what ends do we create? This is an important bit. If we don't begin with why, begin with the end in mind, all the other things can be just taking us off the correct path. Building trust with others. If that's the goal, if building trust with others is the goal, we need to backwards map it. How are we going to do that? But to get one more step forward, as a teacher, as a leader, as an educator, we seldom do this and ask ourselves, who is the self that creates? Who are we becoming? How does this quality of myself would form or deform in the way I relate to my family, my work, my colleagues, and my world? So having that understanding of who am I becoming through these connections. Remember, the people we are surrounded by are the people we become. If you are surrounded by negative people, you will eventually become a negative person. If you're surrounded by high achievers, you'll become a high achiever. Surrounding yourself with those people are key to success. So how do we just sort of make it a little bit more practical? There is the 7 norms of collaborative work. This is a self-assessment and a critical reflection skill to master any teaching and learning. So on our community, in this module, you'll see the norms assessment. Click it, it's just a quick form, and you look at these 7 sections. And they'll help you identify today and what areas are you going well in, what areas could you improve in regarding collaboration and forming those relationships. Just gives actual points or competence to those areas. So have a go. Once you've done that, there's a short little task. And I love this quote by Socrates: the unexamined life is not worth living. It's one of those things. We do all this work, do all this personal development, professional development. We don't examine, is this actually working for us? There's a simple task. On our Create Community Forum, just reflect on the first these three things. You've just done the normative assessment task and just seeing where you're at. Now, what were your strengths? Which norms could I strengthen and what actions can I take? Just write a short reflection on the Create Community Forum. What's one takeaway you can apply to build relationships with your team or your students? Remember that unexamined life is not worth living, and it's best to do an examination and reflection in a public forum so then we can build on the success of others. So the last few sections, habits that build our trust. So we need to understand the individual. That's what we're trying to do just there through that norms assessment. Take a few minutes, do it as you go through this part of the program, and then post. Understanding where we're at now helps us get from A to B. Closes the gap between where we want to be, where we are now, and where we want to be. And attending to those little things, showing up and giving yourself a pat on the back for a good job, those little things matter. Remember, keeping commitments, showing up for ourselves, showing up for others, doing what we say and saying what we are going to do. Clarifying expectations, that comes back to building trust in a team, making sure what you're being asked to do is the exact thing you're about to go and do. Showing that personal integrity and then apologizing when you make a withdrawal. Now, what does that mean? When you make a mistake, and that's human nature, when you make a mistake, you will withdraw trust from the bucket of somebody. Our job is to put back trust. And how do we do that? We be vulnerable. So, hey, mate, I've stuffed up. Or, hey, I actually don't know the answer to that question. Let's work on it together. Being vulnerable in knowing where we are and where we need to be is really how we create trust with others. It doesn't matter at what level, because trust comes down to truth. So I loved this quote by Professor David Woods. Whatever the context, leaders will need to lead through example, setting appropriate expectations with encouragement and enthusiasm to generate energy, willing effort, and above all, empowerment trusting people and giving them the opportunity to do their best. In these endeavors, the proper use of language is vital. Careless and negative talk can sap energy and demotivate, while positive and targeted talk can spark enthusiasm, extra effort, and increase aspirational thinking. We've probably been around those people who just complain about everything and how much tiring it can actually be on our emotional state that you hear this negative thing. If you're on any news media, or you're on any social media, you'll notice that there's always negative talk, because negative talk gets attention. But the thing is, it can actually determine how much impact we're going to have and how much trust we build. So consider what we say, consider what you do, and thinking about not engaging in that kind of talk will actually help others and yourself. So let's listen to a little bit of Stephen Covey in the last takeaway for the circle of concern and the circle of influence. This is a strategy and a system that I've been using for years as soon as I found out about it, because sometimes we can feel super overwhelmed. We can feel like nothing is ever going to change. The weather is so out of our control, but people fixated on no end. Oh, it's raining. Oh, today's a crap day. Can you control that? Is it actually a crap day? Well, let's discuss in a little bit.
Think on it this way. 2 circles. The larger outer circle you call the circle of concern. Things you're concerned about. Things you're worried about. But then there is an inner circle that's very small that are concerns you have influence over. Where do proactive people focus their energies? Which circle? The inner circle. Where do reactive people focus their energies? The outer circle. Why? Because they're victimized. Look at this person I have to live with. Look at how my boss has dead-ended my career. She says she has an open mind, but she has a closed mind. Look at these kids. They're driving me crazy. Why do you choose to go crazy? Well, what else could you do? What else could you do? Well, I don't know. Think. I don't know. Think. What other alternatives do you have other than going crazy? I don't know. Think hard. I guess I could maybe try to rebuild a relationship to a point that we could come up with some discipline agreements. What's your choice? You have the power. Always treat people as if they're proactive. The more irresponsible they are, the more you teach them about their responsibility. Always work on the inner circle. It is a marvelous thing. It is inevitable. Inevitable. If you work on the inner circle, it'll get larger. Always. Why? The energy there is positive. You're doing something at the outside edge of that inner circle that wins more confidence with other people. The way you treat them. The way you make and keep promises. The way you apologize when you make mistakes. The way you gather feedback. The way you give feedback. The way you're trying to play God in someone's life. The way you seek to understand what's important to the other, so that your presentations are made in terms of their frame of reference, their language, their value system. You're constantly making deposits into the emotional bank account. But if you focus on the outer circle, you're taking withdrawals. You're judging. You're criticizing. You don't seek to understand. You're not consistent. All in the name of their inconsistency. You overreact in the name of their overreaction. You badmouth them behind their back, unaware that the people you're talking to as you do the bad-mouthing know you're going to do the same thing about them when there's a strain on that relationship. If you want to retain those who are present, my friends, always be loyal to those who are absent. They know you're principle-centered. They know you're just not sucking up to the social value system, that you're a person of integrity, that have standards. You will not participate in negative energy exchanges or do anything that in any way would create a feeling of disrespect toward another person, because they know that would attach to them sometime under another situation. That's why you would never confide with one child about another, or make comparisons or quick quips and judgments and labels, because you create a culture that they know you're doing the same thing about them when the situation changes. No, there's a steadiness about you that is based on principles that never change, not based upon moods that are volatile and mercurial, that are always going up and down. So by working on the inner circle, it gets larger and larger and larger. And eventually you begin to deal with some of those concerns that you have that today you couldn't even begin to touch. I could take you to not tens, but to hundreds, perhaps even thousands by now, of organizations that are going through a profound transformation, and it started with a person at the bottom who worked on the circle of influence, who took responsibility, who was patient, lived the law of the harvest, whose circle of influence gradually got larger and larger. In most cases, they came in contact with someone that had a huge circle of influence. Then leverage, multiplication took place. Exponential leverage that started to influence entire divisions, entire companies, multi-billion multinationals.
So that circle of influence, that ability to focus on what we can control rather than what's external to us. We've always got a choice in any situation, and that is the key for building trust and influencing others. We can do that from ourselves first, even if we're in the most trodden down part of our system, or sort of we are feeling like we're hopeless or lost. Just focusing on back what we can control then actually broadens that influence, and other people will pick it up. So lastly is that perception. We are in leadership positions, no matter if you're a classroom teacher, a head teacher, a deputy, an inspirational person, you are leaders of positions. So we are watched by our students, our staff, our community all the time. Because of our role, we have this disproportionate influence on those who we lead. So whatever we are feeling, however we are behaving, reverberates through that workplace. So just consider, what are you doing now? That is it. We've made it through the Relational Trust module. Hopefully you've got some amazing value. Comment on our forum. How did you go today? What did you think? What were your takeaways? At the end of this, we want to reflect on those core things. Did you understand what attributes to relational trust and how to build? Can you identify the key communication skills like mirroring and rapport that actually establish and maintain that trust? And can you just see and develop that clear understanding of what is in your control and what is out? So if you could do that, fantastic. Write it in our community board. Keen to hear what your thoughts are. If you haven't gone to the next module, this is what's coming your way. It's the foundational skills needed to leverage innovation such as artificial intelligence in course creation. So this is the significant time-saving module. So doing this will actually save you literally countless hours. I just can't explain how many hours you'll save. Anyway, that's enough for this one. Effort equals results. I'll see you in the next one.